guys, it's Erica Galinas, Northwest Indiana's Golden Girl, coming to you from C21 Affiliated. Something I want to talk about this week, going on showings from the buyer perspective. There'll be some good stuff here for sellers, because as I talk about these are things you can look for in your own house if you are thinking of listing your house. But I know I hear from buyers a lot, they don't know how to do a home showing. They've never done it before. It feels weird to be in somebody else's house. So I wanted to kind of go through some of that stuff with you. The shows, the HGTV shows, they always have this real estate agent who is strangely silent and completely unhelpful, turns a key in the door, makes dramatic hand gestures and says, "This is the living room." And it's like, fantastic. Obviously the living room, there's a giant couch, television, anything else you can help us with. So I kind of wanted to go through some of the things more because your agent should be, your advocate. They got your back. They should be helping you with this. You've not looked at a million different homes. You've looked at like 3. So I'm kind of give you some hints. Hopefully your agent does these things. If not, there's 100 agents out there. You can always go pick a new one. 2 important things before we get into the nitty-gritty secret details. One is that none of the things I'm talking about today should be deal breakers for houses. The most important thing when you walk into a house and you get good vibes, that is probably one of the most important things you can have. It means you like the location. It means you like the mood of the house or the neighborhood. It just makes you feel right, you know what I mean? So none of the things we talk about today should ever be an automatic disqualifier. These are all, they're not cosmetic because that can all be changed, but they're just maybe vaguely issues that you can find out about. The second thing is, I am not a home inspector. I am not a general contractor. I'm presuming your agent is neither one of those things. None of these things mean that anything is wrong. They're just things that I have learned to keep an eye out for in my years of experience as an agent, that these might be things to just ask about. So, starting off simple, living rooms, bedrooms. Kind of the same kind of room functionally. There's not always a lot of clues to like the insides of the house and plumbing and electrical and stuff like that. There are some cool things that you can pick up on. The first one is that you have, in any house, brand new, 100 years old, whatever it is, sometimes you can see cracks. Obviously, if we're not talking about a big, giant, 3-inch horrible crack, but just some little weird cracks. And sometimes this can be an indication of just a bad drywall job or an old drywall job. Cosmetic, not a big deal. Sometimes, depending on where the cracks are, let's say that you have a house and they've added a room onto it. If you look at the corner where that room was stuck onto the house and there's all drywall cracks and weirdness going on where it's connected, that's going to be something that you want to find out about. That could be an indication that the foundation under the addition isn't strong enough, or it was attached improperly. There might be water issues, something like that. So when you go into a room, look in the corners, make sure there, what's going on. If that looks like a little cosmetic thing, no big deal. Check those kinds of things out. Same thing, in the corners of doorways and windows. Sometimes you'll have, I guess I'd call them stress cracks, which aren't a big deal because you're opening and closing a window or a door. Sometimes you can have larger and or oddly shaped ones. That might be an indication of water or some kind of framing issue. So kind of keep an eye out for those little things. A lot of people ask me, does this house have hardwood floors? And I'll tell you what, in a house built 40s, 50s, 60s, there's a very good chance that the house originally had hardwood floors. That nice, 2.5-inch oak hardwood that lasts forever and can be refinished. So you have all this carpeting on the floor, and it's not the greatest. You probably want to pull it up. How do you know if there's hardwood floors? There's no way to know for sure unless you can look at them. And I do not advocate you pulling up the corner by the molding, even if it's a vacant house or foreclosure or something like that. You're damaging somebody else's property. But what you can do, most homeowners know that the heat vents just lift out. Boop. You can replace them all day with different kinds and everything like that. What you can also do is pull one of those out. If it comes out easily, don't tug real hard and kind of peek. A lot of times the carpeting and the padding have been cut to within a half-quarter inch of the actual floor vent opening that comes from the furnace. See what's under there. Is there hardwood under there? Is there plywood under there? Is there some horrible asbestos linoleum under there? Who knows, but that's a way that you can get a look at it and see. The other thing, again, these are very basic rooms. Look at the rugs. Where are the rugs? Are they in nice decorative places that make a lot of sense, or are they in kind of a weird place? And you know what? As long as there's no furniture moving or anything like that, lift up the rug and look underneath. There could be a pet stain, a water stain, some kind of horrible nail polish stain or something like that. So decorative rugs are decorative and it's awesome, but weirdly placed rugs that look kind of weird, somebody might be covering something up. Kitchen. The first one you always want to do is open up the cabinet under the sink and look at the plumbing. I'm not a plumber. I'm not entirely sure what I'm looking at. I did one plumbing repair once in my life. I was very proud of myself. But What you can see is A, what do the pipes look like? Are they all rusted and gross with that blue water buildup stuff on it? The other thing is to look at the floor of that cabinet. Is there big water stains there? That could be, again, from water plumbing leak that happened 100 years ago. Could be something recent or ongoing. So make sure you open up those cabinet doors and look under there. Speaking of water, look inside the sink. Maybe the dishwasher if they have one. Are there horrible stains of any kind? Not so much like food, although that's gross, but that's not the end of the world, but like rust or some kind of like discoloration. That can be a sign of high mineral content in the water, really bad well water, something like that. So it might be something you want to check on that. And then here's something that comes up that I didn't realize at first, but a lot of houses this happens. People redo a kitchen, they put up beautiful, fabulous gray cabinets, and they're awesome. And you open them up, and the shelves all sag because they have not made a good quality shelf, and the supports are lousy, and it's made of fiberboard. Try to find a cabinet that has the canned goods. Try to find a cabinet that has all the dinner plates. Look at that shelf. Is it straight? Does it have a little bit of sag? That'll give you an idea what those cabinets may look like 5, 6, 10 years. Bathroom, similar to the kitchen. Look at the plumbing under the sink. Look at the water stains in the bathtub. That's ceramic. Sometimes those can be harder to clean than stainless steel, so you can get an idea of the water quality. Two other interesting things that happen in the bathroom that sometimes you can tell. If you're in the bathroom, look it up at the ceiling. You might see they're like brown little spots. Just not black, not mold, not mildew, but just like brown spots. What that is condensated water. So they're running the shower, they're running the sink, whatever's going on. If they have those spots in the ceilings, it means there might be a ventilation problem. Again, not necessarily a deal breaker, but something you want to at least be aware of. The other thing I always look at next to the bathtub or the shower stall is look at the walls just outside of the tile or the shower surround. Poke on them, not real hard, poke on them a little bit. If they're spongy or they're wavy or something like that could be a problem. That water is getting either in front of it, happens sometimes, you may still want to do a repair. More importantly, is it getting behind it? So is there a caulk problem? Is there something inside of the plumbing that there's a leak? You can usually tell because that's where that water builds up in the bathroom and it'll make a drywall a little spongy. Windows throughout the house. Newer windows, older windows, you're looking for two big things. One is if a window looks cloudy, like weird, like is it dirty? I'm not sure. Could be the sign of a broken seal. So you have the 2 panes of glass with that gas in between for insulation. If those seals break, the gas escapes and there's condensation and stuff that happens inside. So if you have a bunch of windows with that weird cloudy thing, those windows may have lost their insulation protection, so you want to look out for that. The other thing, people paint windows all the time. I'm okay with it, doesn't bother me. But if you have painted windows in the house, look in the corners of the window, usually the bottom corners. If you see brown spots or like a vague brown look on the paint or even like peeling paint in those areas, that means that there's probably some water getting in. Could have been a rainstorm that they forgot to close the windows for, or it could be something else going on with the window frame. So keep an eye on that. Excuse me. Basement. You can't find out as many things about a house in a basement as you think you can. The one big thing is water. Obviously water. Nobody wants water in the basement. Most cracks in a basement are going to be visible, so you can see them. It's pretty obvious. The big thing I always look for in a basement, finished or not, you can usually find a place in the basement where there's just framing. There's just, hopefully a pressure treated 2x4 on the floor with framing. Look at the bottoms of that framing. Look at the bottom of the furnace. Look at the bottom of unfinished areas in the basement. There could be signs of water. You usually see a little gray, white line, sometimes an inch or two. Sometimes I've seen them 5 feet, it's a bad flood. But again, this could be something that happened 30 years ago during the great rainstorm of 1984, and it happened one time because the sump pump broke, or it could be an indication of ongoing problems. So keep an eye, again, those unfinished spaces, look for water there. Paneling. This applies for any part of the house, but usually you see this in the basement. We've all been in that basement, maybe stolen one of Dad's beers in that basement, but the paneling in the basement. 2 things you can do. First of all, poke at it a little bit. Again, don't bust your hand through it or anything, but what you're trying to find out is the paneling flexing. If it's installed properly, it'd be nice and flat, there won't be any movement. If it's going like this, that means either it wasn't installed well or that it's taking on water, so it's swollen now. Keep an eye on that. Most people are going to tear down paneling, so the other thing that I recommend that they do, and again, this is anywhere in the house, knock on the paneling, over a foot or 2. What you're trying to find out, there'll be a difference. If you knock in one place and it sounds hollow, or you knock in another place anywhere, it does not sound hollow, If it's hollow, there's probably no drywall behind it. It's directly to the studs, which if you're doing a remodeling project is fantastic because you just got to pull the plywood or the paneling off, throw it away. If you knock in a bunch of different places and it doesn't ever sound hollow, there's a good chance that either behind it is drywall or it's installed directly on the block, which is also not awesome. So keep an eye on that. Furnace. I am not an HVAC person. I don't know. I've seen the most horrible, god-awful furnaces, spider webs and horribleness. Totally fine. I have seen, almost brand new furnaces not doing well. So you can't really tell much with the furnace. What you can tell sometimes is a lot of times people will keep a maintenance record on the side of the furnace. And it'll say, filter changed here, such and such there, and there's all these dates and everything like that. Awesome for the furnace, even better in a lot of ways because it usually means that the person who owned that house was very conscientious about maintenance. And you maybe shouldn't, but you can make assumptions about, how they maintain the rest of the house based on their fastidious attention to the furnace. Excuse me. Basement, particularly in a finished basement, you can't really see the walls, so you don't know what's going on. Again, look up at the ceiling. A lot of times there are like that styrofoamy ceiling panels, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's just open beams, which is also fine. Basically what you're looking for is signs of water leaks. A lot of times somebody would have a leak in a bathroom or a kitchen above it. All that water's coming straight down and either making a big brown spot on that ceiling tile, or there's some evidence of water damage to the subfloor above it or the actual beams. So just keep an eye on that. Again, it might be that they had a leak 20 years ago and they fixed it and just never replaced the subfloor, which is not unusual at all because that's a big hassle, but just something to keep in mind. Outside. Finished basements, we just talked about this. You can't see the walls of the basement. Everything looks awesome, but you can't see the walls. Nobody's going to start pulling down drywall to see what the block looks like behind it. Sometimes outside the house, you can see that foundation, walk the perimeter of the house, and see what that block looks like. Again, some raggedy concrete blocks look all raggedy, but totally fine basement. But you can look for things like big cracks, or you can look for like weird patterns where it's shifting out of true or something like that. So take a look at that. This one's kind of tossed up wood rot at the bottom of the doorways, the exterior doorways, and then the windows in some cases. This could be a sign that water is being filtered towards the house or not in the direction it's supposed to go, so it's pooling around the bottom of the garage entrance door or the bottom of a window well for the basement. So look at that stuff. Make sure the water is directed the way it should be. Related to that, take a look at if it's a house that doesn't have like immaculate landscaping and stuff like that, or even if it does, take a look at what that landscaping looks like or non-landscaping directly outside the perimeter of the house. If you have, what we're looking for is slope. So you want everything from your house, let's see, I'm backwards, to go away from the house. So then when it rains, all the water goes away from the house. Sometimes you get a house, more often than you think, that goes like this. It goes towards the house. So when you look at the landscaping, just kind of eyeball it down the side there and see, does it go like this, which way it goes, and more importantly, what's growing closest to the house. If you have nice, thick, green, juicy weeds growing right up against the house, or you have rock that's all nice and robust and it's got hostas in it, but then the rock towards the back, it's kind of compact and kind of muddy looking, you may have a grading issue with the house because that water is collecting at the outside of the house. Landscape looks great here, towards the house not so great. You may have water and you want to get that away from the house by all means. And then roofs. A lot of times the roof is pretty self-explanatory. It either looks awesome or it looks cracked and all gross and like peeling and stuff like that. Again, usually roof prices, cosmetic-ish stuff like that is reflected in the price. You're not going to get $20,000 or $20,000 discount on a house with a brand new roof, but if the roof's 15, 20 years old, you just might. The big thing with roof to pay attention to right off the bat is stand back and look at the house and look at the roof line, because you can see there usually. So does it go like this, or is there a sway in between each joist up there? So this is great. This sway, not so great. What it usually means is that the load of the roof is too heavy for the joists, so they're not directly supported underneath. It's swaying in between them. So that could be a big problem that needs to be addressed. those are some of the only other big thing that gets a lot of play and showings, I guess, is what does the house smell like? So you have obvious ones, houses that smell like mold and musty mildew, houses that smell like pet smell, and everybody knows what that means. Houses that smell, you'll see this sometimes, that smell like food or grease or something like that. Some of those things are no big deal. The other thing you want to look for is houses that smell too much. A lot of people like vanilla candles or little Glade plugins, but if you walk in and a house just reeks like lavender and you're like, oh, it's too much, they could be covering up for some other smell. So just, kind of keep an eye out on that. There's not really a way to tell whether or not they're covering up or whether they just really like smelly stuff, but just be on the lookout for other stuff like pet stains in the carpet, or if it smells like smoke, sometimes you can move a picture and then you actually have like a brown frame in the picture, which is not great. Again, smells aren't always a big deal. A lot of times you'll have houses that are vacant and the windows have been closed all summer. You walk in, it smells a little bit like vacant house. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It doesn't mean that water's leaking into the basement or anything like that. It's just been closed up. That's really all I have for now. I just want to say that these are not deal breakers. These are things you can ask your agent to call the sellers about and ask. These are things you can point out to a home inspector that you're concerned about. These are things you can look for information on the disclosures. Please don't pass up a house because there's a water stain under the sink and you're freaked out by that. Please let somebody else check it out. Because again, a lot of these things could have happened 20 years ago and don't have anything to do with today. Sellers, pay attention to some of those things. See if you can, maybe make some changes or make those updates. Obviously, if it happened 20 years ago, it happened 20 years ago, and there's no reason to be concerned, but you may be able to save yourself some time and money during the home inspection process by getting those taken care of now. So that's what I got for today. Kind of short, got a little bit cold, a little coffee, sorry about that. I will be back soon. If you have any questions or ideas for topics, please let me know. Thanks, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.